Well, welcome to another video. In this one, I'm going to attempt to make a set of 3 knives that are matching, but different, but the same. Anyway, we'll see how we go. Just clear off the workbench. Prepare the stock. I'm going to make this one out of sawmill blade. I think it's some pretty good high carbon steel for knife making, so I've led to believe. Just using the hot cut there to cut off the ends, prepare it for the, I don't know, forging. Tried to use old Barrier's rasp as a hot file, but just easier with a grinder. Yeah, just starting to forge in the tip. Just trying to not push too much in too quick and make a fish mouth. I've heard they're pretty bad. Makes cold shuts and cracks and bits and pieces. Not really good. So I'll just mark out the length, then I can use the corner of the anvil there to make a mark so I can set down for my transitions. I didn't film some of it, I've skipped ahead here. I've ended up, I've got my ricasso area in there and the tang forged. I'm just playing around with trying to draw out the bevels, or not draw out, forge in the bevels. So with a bit of tweaking and back and forth, I can try to orientate the tip, forge out the bevels enough to get the width I'd want. I'm still a learner when it comes to forging out knives, and I found this a bit challenging to try to get three that are the same. Like, it's easy to make one. You've got nothing else to compare it to or match it to, but anyway, with a bit of patience, I get there in the end. Just a little bit of adjustment in the vise there to help it get any twists and buckles and stuff out of it. So that's pretty much it for the forging. I just did a 3 thermal cycles. And once I've done that to all 3 of them, I didn't film myself making the other 2 because I thought it was twice as much of the same as you just watched, so there was no point. But once they're forged, I heat them up, put them in the vermiculite just to cool down really slowly, get them nice and soft and annealed. So they're all cooled down now. I can just get the grinder and take off some of the forge scale, just so it doesn't destroy my grinding belts. So once they're all cleaned off, I decided to use a template, that way I can make sure that all 3 of them are the same. So I could trace the profile onto all of them, cut and grind them to suit the template. It's pretty self-explanatory. I just keep doing this until the profile's all dressed up nice. I found grinding 3 knives at once, it's almost 3 times as much work for some reason. It seemed to take for a while. Now getting set up to grind in the shoulders. I like that little jig, little carbide insert things on there that seems to not grind away, but it probably destroys them if you use them. This is how they're supposed to be used with file. Works alright on the grinder. So I've got all the profiles done on all 3. They're all the same-ish. Now I'll just work on roughing in the bevels. I just do these freehand. I could figure out how to use a jig, but too lazy. So just check that the bevel's grinding in a straight line. Sometimes it might be a bit wobbly, or you'll notice it by eye if one side's fatter than the other. So you just take it down a bit on the fat side and skip the skinny bits. I don't know, just how I do it. So I thought I would try putting a touch mark in a different process than what I normally would. I normally would just put it in the forge and get it hot and do it, because I thought I'd be able to get it hot enough with the little map gas torch here, but I don't get a very deep impression. It wasn't hot enough. But I mean, it did sort of work, but not as good as I would have liked to have. So now I'm just setting up a bit of a heat shield in the forge there, just so I can get everything hot without ready for the heat treat, just so I don't have any overly hot spots. I found that making a little cave in there for the knife to sit in that's not in the direct burner seems to get a nicer, evener heat. So I'll pull out a bit of steel from there, just drop in the oil just to warm the oil up. I've heard it seems to quench better if you have hot oil or warm oil. I don't know, there's science in it. There we go, so I just edge quench. No warps or cracks or anything. They all seem to have hardened well. So I'll just chuck them in my toaster oven, set a timer for a couple of hours, do that a couple of times, and then Bob's your uncle. clean up all the burnt oil, I guess. Bring up through the grits of the belt. So all three of these knives are just getting a flat grind. So I thought for something different I'll use this bit of, I think it's coastal American oak or something like that. It's slightly spalted, which I think might be good for stabilising and dyeing. And because I'm trying to make the three knives the same but different, it gave me an idea of trying to get some different dyes for the stabilising resin. Just do a bit of experimenting. So end up I've got four colours. I've got a yellow, a red, a purple and a blue, and I'll just choose the best looking three out of the four and use for this project. You've just got to be careful not to suck out all the air too fast, because it gets all bubbly and overflows and makes a mess. But then once that's all held vacuum for a while, this took a couple of days. I had to hold the vacuum, make sure it was no more air trapped inside the bits of wood, and then however long I've let it sit under vacuum, I let it sit, you know, if it's one day under vacuum, I let it sit for a whole day just in there without vacuum. Then I'll remove them from the resin, wrap them in foil and bake them in the little oven to set the resin, and that's pretty much it. So I've got all four wrapped up. Now it's time to bake it. Still a little bit hot, but I was too impatient. I wanted to see what it looked like. So I put them on the sander, on the grinder, ground off all the excess, and I tried to see what it'd be like spraying isopropyl alcohol on them, just to see what the colour would come out like, but they're too hot. But it gave me a bit of an idea. Now I use this new fancy waterfall platen, I think they're called. Still got to figure out the best way to use these. I think fancy knife makers use them. I thought if I clamp it in this jig square, I should be able to run that along the bearing holders, and it should give me the same plunge line depth every single time. I've just got to work out what speed it likes work. You can't run it at high speed. It destroys the belts and the little tiny, I guess, spindle or the bearings at the end. But it does save a lot of time on hand sanding. So I mean, that's got to be good. And that's them, all nice and consistent, and they look pretty good just off the machine. Except one of them jumped me guide, and now I've like wrecked that transition, so now I've got to regrind them all to match that. So I'd reground the plunge lines. I'm just using the Trizact belt here just to get a high grit finish on them, just before I start hand sanding. It's not a bad finish. I think hand sanding will take out any little imperfections that are still there. It's always the best part of knife making is hand sanding, so I've been told. I actually think it's a bit shit, but it's part of it. So now I'll grind a little, I think it's a choil. Now, yeah, put a bit of buffing compound on the buffing wheel and get ready to have it grab and flick into the floor. No, just buff up the thing, make it like a little mirror. I thought I'd just spray it with a bit of inox to stop it from rusting, because I want to wrap it in this duct tape to protect everything for like the future processes that I've got to go to try to fit the handle and other bits and pieces. So I didn't have enough taper in the tang, so I just had to go and mark them all, measure them and chuck them on the grinder. Now they're all nice taper on them. I can work out for a little bolster, I can mark it all out. I'd watched the YouTube video from Alex Norton, the Valhalla Knife Works, and he put a tutorial on how to fit bolsters better. And this is one thing he did, which is a lot, just seems the process might be a lot quicker and easier than what I used to be doing. He drills heaps of holes and then gets a little rotary burr and removes a lot of the material. From the under or from the back side, so then that way then I thought I'll come in with a jeweler saw, I can join the things up, but I'm not cutting through the full thickness of brass, which actually it made it really good, so thanks for the tip. Now it's just the old file and fit until they get pretty close. So I sneak up on it until it gets pretty close, and then I try to hit it in with a hammer the rest of the way, just so it sort of bites in there. And time to separate them. Now I'll put them on a bit of a surface wheel, made them all nice and flat. Hand sanded and polished them up. They look like bought ones. Yeah, I'm just trying to work out what I'm going to make the handle stacks out of. I've chosen those colours, but I've also dyed one more piece of that wood in just neutral, because these ones that are coloured aren't long enough to make a handle out of it. So I'm going to have to put a small piece of neutral spacer in there. But you'll see. So I've cut out all my bits of G10 and brass, I don't know what you would call that, spacer stuff. So I'd have the handle, spacer, another spacer, spacers, oh well. That's how I'd stack it, then with the bolster. Now I just got to broach a hole. So this is the first time I'm trying to use the broaching tool to cut the hole out. I normally would just burn the whole tang in to the handle, but I just used the broach, got it close, and then now I'm just finishing it off with the burn-in technique. Checking that I went deep enough. Yeah, I just put the slot in the spacer stock. Little rotary burr just made it easy. Yeah, just making sure the final preparation before glue up is making sure all the surfaces are flat. Once I'm happy with it, I'll just degrease everything. Retape the handle, blade I meant to say. Always pays to be prepared with the clamp up, because I do it a couple of times dry fit first, because when you've got glue running out everywhere, making a mess on everything, you can never find a clamp quick enough. I just mix up this 2-part epoxy knife glue. It's got 2 parts. You just mix one part, you put one part in first and then you put the second part in. There's a little trick I started doing, just in case the fit up's not 100%. Glue might dribble down and get onto your blade, whereas I just sort of glue it in with a bit of hot glue and it sort of seals it all off, but the hot glue is really easy to peel off. So the important thing I've found with filming any type of fiddly things is make sure you're just not quite in the shot. I should try to figure out some. I've seen people have made little jigs and clamp things that would be a lot easier to use than what I do or how I do it. But I mean, I don't make that many knives, so if I get there in the end, it's just fiddly. Well, that's it in its clamp up. Just let that sit overnight, then it'll be golden. So just try to mark out where the each side of the blade, so that way I could figure out where the center line is. Because a lot of the time the handle block doesn't glue up 100% straight. It might be a bit skew-if to one side or whatever, but if you mark out where the centre is, and you just work out how much you need. You can cut off the excess. I thought before I take off too much of the handles, I'll set it up and drill the pinholes in all of them. It's always a good bit when you start profiling the handle and even starting to grind it to shape. It really transforms from just a flat bit of steel with a shitty block glued to it to looking like a knife. So that's all them ready to be gets profile cut. Even at this stage, I was amazed at how the spalted bit of timber took the dye, just the colours. I was getting excited. I couldn't wait to see what it would look like once the oil goes on there and really makes it pop. I exposed a little tiny bit of the glue, so I'll just have to be careful at the back there. I'll show you, I think there's a closer photo of it later. It doesn't destroy the knife, it's just I wish I didn't broach it that deep as well. So that's all three of them roughed out. Now it's time to hand sand the handles. Get all the pin stops glued in. just going to use a 5-minute epoxy. I'll just paint it a little bit just so it swells up in the hole. Make sure it stays in there good and stuck. Wipe off any excess glue. Just knock any heads off, any high spots off with a file. Now I ended up, they had a crack in the timber, so I mixed up some glue with the sawdust and made a filler out of it. So once it dried, I could file off the excess. And then just keep sanding. I think I sanded these to about 800 grit from memory. I can't remember, but so that's what the neutral colour looks like. But you'll have to wait. There we go. Have a look at that. Look at the colours. Really a fan of the dyeing, the stabilised stuff with this bolted wood. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching it. If you got this far, thanks a lot. Consider subscribing. See you on the next one.